Yes.
So I think I lost you for some time. Is the screen also visible? I opened the Word document.
Yes.
Okay, good. So what is the prerequisite to start AEM? All you need is a JDK 1.7, maybe JDK 1.8 will also work, right? So basically, back in 2011, 2010 onwards, we started with version 5.5. So let me show you a little bit of history here. So there is some confusion between CQ5 and AEM. So difference first. Okay, so if you see, right, Day Software was founded in 1992. Initially, it was called as Day Software. Then Adobe took over, and it started with DayCQ 3.5, 4.0, 4.1, and so on. It gained a lot of popularity in the market 2010, right? 5.2, 5.3 versions onwards. So then Adobe took over the Day Software, and then they started version 5.4 and 5.5 was called Adobe CQ for a few days. Then Adobe thought, why not give it our own? They call it as Adobe Experience Manager, starting version 5.6 onwards. So if somebody says Adobe CQ, we need to specify what version of CQ. If it's AEM, it means it starts from 5.6. So currently there is 6.2 in the market, 6.2 as well. Okay. So this has been the evolution. Now having said that, okay, how do I set up AEM is the question. First of all, AEM distribution comes as a jar and a license file. So if you see how the jar and the license once we get the confirmation, maybe Arvind you would receive it in a license. So you cannot run this jar file without a license, and this is, sorry, what?
You're breaking. I can't hear you.
Yeah. It seems there's some.
Everybody has a. Are you sure?
Yes, I couldn't hear you.
I think it might be the issue with your internet.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who has a problem? Surjit has a problem, is it?
Yes, I wasn't able to hear you at all.
Sorry, what is that?
No, we couldn't hear you properly, Rajesh. Your voice was breaking.
Okay. Surjit is not able to hear me. How about Arvind and Ashok?
Yes,
Yeah.
I wasn't able to hear you too.
Okay. So if two people are able to hear me, it seems like your audio seems to be having an issue, Surjit. So how about you rejoining again?
No. We are not able to hear you.
Yeah, I'm also not able to hear you because
Oh,
I
is it?
think that
Okay.
there might be an issue with your internet. I
Let
think.
me, perfect. Let me rejoin again. Hold on, give me a second. Is it okay now?
Yeah, this is better.
Okay, very good. Okay, so let me do this. I'll keep asking if it's okay. So just let's respond and ensure the
Yeah, it's
audio is
good.
clear. Good. Okay, so if you see, AEM comes as a jar distribution plus a license file. This is the jar and the license which would be distributed with you guys. Okay. Now, for the first time, let's assume that JDK is set up, Java home path variable is set, right? Environment variable is set, as well as the path points to JDK bin location. How do I start my AEM instance? All you need to do is, there are three ways to start the instance. The first one is just go and initially your folder would be having the jar plus the license. The CRX quick start won't be there. So you would go and double click on the jar file. Right? That's all you need to do. This is the first way of installation. Now the moment you double click on the jar file, you would see a pop-up and the server takes about a couple of minutes to start, and this CRX quick start is getting generated in the backend. Okay. So what exactly happens is what we need to understand. Is this clear? Audio?
Yes.
Good. So now what is happening in the backend? Or you might ask me, hey, how do I troubleshoot, or how do I know what is happening in the backend? All you need to do is, there is a particular URL. Always your AEM server, right? If you see, there are two ways in which a AEM server can run. One is it's either the author mode or the publish mode, any CMS system for that matter. If it's the author mode, this is a mode where authors can log in to create the pages. So the entire page is made up of components in AEM. Okay. So for example, let's say I have a page. A page is comprised of components such as logo, components such as text, header, footer, and so on. And each of these sections can be editable. Right? Hey guys, can everybody go on mute, please? There's some background noise. Thank you. Okay. So every particular section within the page would be editable. Right? So this is called as edit mode. Now, what is the naming convention of a AEM installation? So the naming convention is CQ-mode. Okay. So when I say mode, it could either be the author or the publish. So CQ-mode-P followed by the port number. The AEM installation runs on a particular port. Okay. So for an author, it is recommended, Adobe recommends you to have even numbered ports for the author instance. So that's the reason this would be named CQ-author-P4502.jar. Okay. So that's the reason I have added CQ-author-P4502. This is the naming convention. Now the next question is, can I have multiple instances running on my AEM instance? Yes, the answer is yes. The only thing is, the moment AEM server starts up successfully here, right, it took about 162 seconds to start up. You would see a welcome page here. Right? Now the AEM server takes about 2 GB of RAM. Okay. So which means, can I have multiple instances? Yes. The answer is yes, but on different ports. So instead of 4502, it's already occupied. So what you would do is create another folder, call it author2 or whatever, under any location. Name the jar as CQ-author-P4504.jar and then just start it. And every AEM instance requires about 2 to 2.5 GB of RAM. So which means, try to have your RAM upgraded. If people are using 4 GB RAM and all of that, try to get at least 8 GB. 16 GB would be the best. Okay. So try to have a 8 GB RAM on your machine. Now, what I was trying to explain here is basically what is your website made up of. So now how do I access any AEM URL? All you need to do here is, right, server name. So in my case, I'm working on the local host followed by the port number. This is all you need to remember. So I'm going to say HTTP localhost, server name is localhost followed by port number. Right? It will ask you for the credentials. So admin is the super root credentials. Now the moment you go here, so of course this is after the startup of the server.
Rajesh, this is Arvind. Quick question.
Mhm.
So this installation is for the first time, right?
Correct.
When the server has already been installed, is there a Windows service already created, or every time, say for maintenance, when we take down the server, we have to start this again?
You need to start it again. So basically when you start this server, there's a standalone installation. It's not running as a service. So you might want to go and create this particular installation as a service. That is the first thing. And each time you will have to start and stop it.
Okay. Okay. So this is not a turnkey installation, right? This is a standalone AEM. I mean, this is how we would do on the servers.
On the servers, yes, exactly. I mean, there are a couple of other ways as well, which you will understand now.
Okay.
Let's do one thing. You make a note of your questions, so most of the things will get answered, and then we could discuss at the end, so that it will be easy for you.
Okay.
Okay. Now this is the first way. So basically, for people who are relatively new to the CMS background, so there is a particular console which allows you to create the sites. So it's called SiteAdmin. Okay. So this is where the authors log in. So let me write this in case you forget this. Where do I? Yeah. So this is the point, right? AEM is used to build a website. So this is the console HTTP localhost 4502/SiteAdmin. Now here, this is a page, right? This is a website at a root level, Geometrix demo. So these are all the fictitious websites given by Adobe for your reference. Geometrix demo, Geometrix mobile demo, media, GOV. So an author, what he does is, for example, open up any page, double click on a page. You would have to create this page. So let's say I go and create a page. So all I need to do is, you will see this in depth. So at a high level, try to understand. This is a 10,000 feet view of the ground. So new page. Okay. So basically it asks you to choose a template, and let's say I choose any template here. We don't know what a template is, but without choosing this template, I cannot create a page. So I go and say create website collection of pages, right? Collection of pages. Now when I open any page, let's say the products page, the page opens up. Mind you, I'm on the authoring instance, which is a read only. I mean, which is a edit instance. This is an editable instance, which means the content is editable. Guys, are you with me, audio wise?
Yes.
Good. So now if you see, this page is a collection of components. So this is the, let me point this out. Right? This is the logo component. This is the top navigation component. This is the title component. This is a flash component. So entire page is comprised of editable sections here. This is the image component. Now let's say I want to edit this image here. So all I would have to do here is close this guy and choose the pointer and just edit it, right? Or double click, let's say I want to change the text, and author goes and changes the text. Say okay here. Right? So this is the point I've added here. A page is comprised of reusable components. An author can interact with the content, right? With the content. This is called as the dialog. So if you see this particular model window, this pop-up, this is called as a dialog. So this is how the author interacts with the content by using dialogues. Geometrics is a fictitious site. The reason Adobe has created Geometrics for you is so that you try to understand the best practices of content modeling, component development, naming convention of pages, and etc. A page needs to be created by choosing a template. So this is what I mean here. Right? When you say new page, you need to choose a template. Some important points that I've added. Right? So by choosing the template, it gives you an initial layout. So for example, this text is the page that I created by choosing the home page template. So if I double click on text, it would give me some header, footer, and initial layout. Right? This is what the template does. Now in turn, the author can go and keep adding whatever components he requires. Right? Just drag and drop, drag and drop, drag and drop, and the page keeps growing. Right? Now, what is this right color window? Right? This draggable, what is this palette called? Right? This is called as the sidekick. Okay? The sidekick allows the authors to drag, and these are all the components. So I can add a text here, and I can add an image here, right? And so on. So basically, this palette is called sidekick. Now, with the help of us, now once the components are dragged and dropped, then I can go and edit the values. Okay. So let's say I want to change the image here. I drag and drop some image, and then I'll say this is the lighthouse image. Okay. Now, once I do this, this is how the author keeps adding whatever content is required. Right? Now, having said this, we saw the first, what happens when the server is started, we don't know yet, but we saw the first way of installation. Now, how do I shut down the server? The most tempting option here is to just go and close this, but this is not the right way. The right way to do it is you need to do a graceful termination so that all the Java threads will be released properly. Right? So which is, there is a toggle switch here. Just click on the toggle switch and the port will be released. Of course, it might take about 40 to 45 seconds for the entire process to get suspended. So let's wait for that time. Now, what is the second way of installing? Now, whenever you have a jar file, from the command prompt, how would you work with the jar file? What is the command? Anybody? How do you extract the jar file? You're able to hear me? Hello?
Yes, Rajesh, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So basically, whenever you have a jar file, all that you would do is just say java minus jar and provide the name of the jar file. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Java minus, this is the second way of installation. Okay, so let me pull that out. three ways of installing the server. The first way is to double click the jar file. The second way let's get in here. Okay, so if you see, double clicking the jar. Second way is java minus jar, the name of the jar file. So let's add this. Just give me a second, guys. I don't want to type in the stuff here. So yeah. Okay. So I will say java minus jar, and you could also provide additional tuning parameters where you could allocate memory. So what is the heap memory in Java? Anybody? What is the significance of heap memory? You're able to hear me at least?
Yes, Rajesh, we can hear you.
Good. So heap memory in Java heap is where all your objects are stored in the memory, right? So imagine an enterprise application, you might have multiple objects. So you need to maintain or preserve your heap memory well, which means you need to allocate more memory for your heap. Now heap, how do you allocate heap memory? It is by adding parameters. So what parameters to add? To set a minimum heap size during the startup, you would add minus XMS, right? Let's say 256. And you could also set a maximum heap memory on your memory area. So how do I set maximum heap memory? I would say minus XMX, right? XMS and XMX. Right? This is how you would set the heap memory. Now there is another area in your memory which is called as permanent generation. Two areas in memory. One is heap, one is permanent generation. It's also called perm gen. It means the perm gen section holds information about all the objects available, methods and variables. Which means, imagine a large enterprise application. You might have thousands of objects. This perm generation is a reflection of all the objects, methods and variables, right? It also holds the class loader information. It is a core Java concept, which means how do I allocate generation here? How do I allocate permanent generation memory? Max PRM size, right? This is how you would allocate. So in typical production setups, it is recommended to have at least about 10 GB of RAM for the heap and about 5 GB of RAM for your PRM size, right? So that your enterprise application behaves well. So how do I start up the server in the second way? Just go and copy paste this command. So go to the location where the jar is stored. So let's say fresh author, and in this location open the command prompt and paste the code. Okay. Java and just say enter. Could not find or load. Okay, the command is wrong. Okay, hold on. Just give me a minute, guys. So when you're one thing you can do here is go to start and just copy that parameter. That's a smarter way to do it. Okay, it is minus xmx. Right. What I'll do here is just paste this guy. Then copy PRM size is also wrong. It is this guy that I need to use. Okay, so basically this is the first parameter, max PRM. So second, every parameter is separated by a minus symbol here. Okay, so let me copy this guy now. Hopefully this should work. Ah, the space here. Come on. Okay, so let's do a thing. Okay, now it looks good. Okay, there's a space here, is it? Okay. Minus do not create. Okay, let's do one thing. Java minus jar q hyphen hyphen 34502 dot jar, right? This should start up. So if you see, right, so it's trying to. So what happens during the startup? Guys, can you go on mute, please? Somebody is on unmute. If somebody is on unmute, can you go on mute, please? Hello. Okay. So what happens when the server starts up, right? So in the back end, right, now you might ask me, hey, how do I troubleshoot? Right? What is happening? First thing, a CRX quick start folder is getting generated. Right? You're able to hear me?
Yes, Rajesh.
Okay. CRX quick start folder is getting generated. That is the step number one. Step number two, where there is a particular console called system console. This URL is on your notes already, so don't worry about the URL. And when you go here, it will ask you for the username password. And in this username password, you log in here. Right? There is something called as bundles, and I see that out of a total of 450, my server requires a total of 452 bundles for the startup, among which 360 are in the active state. Only when all the 452 bundles are in the active state, all the pages will load properly. So if you refresh after 10 seconds, so this is your first level of troubleshooting. On production, let's say somebody complains, hey, my instance is not working properly. This is your first level of debugging. Go and check if all the bundles are in the act. Every bundle has a state associated to it. Every bundle has a number associated to it. This is the name of the bundle. And the bundle can be started or stopped. We don't know what the bundle is, but at a high level, you need to understand this is how you troubleshoot. Okay, so if you see, I've added this URL somewhere.
Rajesh,
Yeah?
so these bundles are out of the box, they're not custom, right? I mean, you don't.
Yes.
Okay.
At the, for the first time installation, your entire AEM is able to start up because all the system bundles, as the name says, right, all the system bundles are started up. Can I create my own bundle? Yes, I could. Okay. Now, that is the first level of troubleshooting. The second level of troubleshooting is just go to the CRX, under the CRX quick start folder, you have the logs, and in the logs, there is one log called error.log, which will tell you all the errors during startup if there are any errors. So it's always a good habit to go and check if there are any errors here. Okay, and also std out, right? Std error and std out. Just go and inspect these two log files as well. It will tell you if there are any errors during the startup. Okay. Now, the once you want to see, the server was started at 23:10, which is 2 minutes back, and these are the two errors that the server has. It is because of one of my bundles called city artifact. This is my custom bundle that I've created for Citibank. Okay. So that is the reason for some error. This is how you inspect, right? Two levels. Now, the next thing, just give me like a minute. I'll have some water and come back. Okay guys, so I'm back. You're able to hear me right again?
Yes.
Good. So having said this, what is the, let's go a little further. Okay. Now how do I shut down the server? Right? Again, don't use this close window option. Do a graceful termination. So say Control C to shut down the server, so that everything will be released properly, all the processes and stuff. Okay. So it's released now. Now let us try to copy this command. We want to allocate the startup parameters and check if it works again. Could not. Okay.
There seems an extra space at the beginning after Java is.
Oh, is it? Okay. Hold on. Okay, anyway, I will send you that one. I'll send you that command. I'll have to try something and I'll send you that. So the third way of starting the server, we saw the first two ways. Third way of starting the server would be, you would, so look at this, you would have to go to the CRX quick start. Okay, this is the CRX quick start which got automatically generated. Go to the bin folder. Okay, in the bin folder you would see that there is something called start. Guys, can you go on mute please? Lot of background noise. Thank you. Okay, so if you see, this is the batch file. Right? Does a batch file run on a Linux machine or Unix machine? It doesn't. So for a Unix machine, you would want a shell script. Okay, so if you see, this is the shell script start.sh. So within the bin folder, you have a start.bat and you have a start.sh. This is the bash script. Okay, and this is a start.bat. Okay. So if you see the start.bat, because I'm running on a Windows machine, on the start.bat I have the port number, I have the run mode. Currently I'm running as author, and then I have the heap, right? PRM size allocated here. Okay. Now once I do all of this, right, here you can go and tune. If you want to add more memory, you'll make this as 512. If you want a GB of memory, make it as 1024 and work on it. I basically want to start this instance as author running on port 4502. So all I need to do, the third way of running the server, is by double clicking on the start.bat. Once that happens, again, how to troubleshoot? Go to system console and view how many are in the active state. See, first time about 143 are in the active, the other bundles are still in the installed. So what is happening when the server is starting? The bundle, there is a transition of all the bundles from the installed to the active. 278 installed, 143 active. Now when I refresh again, the 278 installed, became 118 installed and 300 active, right? So there's a transition from installed to active, right? So wait for another 10-15 seconds and we'll refresh and check. Right? 42 installed, 378 active, right? So basically there is a transition. Okay? So wait for another 15-20 seconds. And guys, maybe on day after tomorrow onwards, or probably 2 or 3 sessions post this, we might start with the hands-on. So try to recap all the JSP concepts, especially the directives in JSP and creation of custom tag libraries. So this will be helpful for you. Now the server startup is completed. Now if you refresh, all the bundles would be in the active state. Right? So having said this, we learned about the server startup. Now if you see AEM, we have been deploying it as a standalone, right? What is the web server? Because this is used to build a web application, I definitely require a web server. Do you agree with me? Now which web server, when AEM is started, what web server is it using in the backend? Right? Definitely, because it has to work over there is some web server. So by default, whenever AEM is started, Jetty web server is started in the backend. So if you see, when I started the server, Jetty itself is installed as a bundle. A bundle is nothing but a jar file plus some metadata to it. It's a simple jar plus metadata to it. So Jetty itself is added as a bundle, right? And Apache Felix Jetty is a web server. So if you see, you can read about Jetty web server. Right? It's a Java HTTP web server and a servlet container. It has a good performance and all of that. So you can go and read this. It's a, if you see, it's a small fast embedded web server. Small fast server. That's the reason they added. Before AEM version 6, right? We had something called CQSE. It's Adobe's one servlet engine. It's called CQSE. Starting AEM 6 onwards, they have introduced the Jetty web server. So if somebody asks you, hey, what happens when the server is started? One is you will explain about all the bundles, and next is Jetty web server is started in the backend. Next. Now what if I don't want the Jetty web server, rather I might have an existing app server in place, something like a JBoss or a WebLogic or a Tomcat. Right? These are all the app servers. Now when I have some app server already in my enterprise, can I deploy AEM on top of my app server? Right? Absolutely possible. So for that, in this distribution you are getting AEM as a jar. But when you already have an application server, how do you deploy a web application? You need a WAR file. WAR means web archive file. So you need to get the distribution of AEM as a web archive and then follow one of these documents here, right? Follow this document. So if you see, now let's say I have, it depends, right? WebSphere has some installation steps. JBoss has, let's say I'm using Tomcat. So click on Tomcat and follow these steps here. Get the AEM WAR file and then add these steps. In this training, I don't have a WAR file with me with a training license. It requires your client's WAR file and then you go and deploy it. Is this clear, guys? Any questions, Surjit or Arvind? Now is the time to take questions. Go ahead. Able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions? Any of you?
One was on the logging. So there is a console file which we check for the errors, right? So if we have to increase the tracing or the logging level, where do we do that?
Okay. So that is a separate topic which we will be covering at a later point. But however, for your curiosity, we see there is a configuration here on the OSGI that uses log4j framework. All you need to do is search for logging, and under the logging, right, you could pick up any file that you want and change the log levels here. Okay. Does this answer? For example, this is access.log, which is under the logs folder. So let's go to the logs folder, and here if you see this is the access.log. Right? So for this particular file, what level of warning do I require? Is it the trace, debug, info, warning, error? Does this answer your question?
So it has, I mean, okay, so we have to go to that particular package and then do it.
Correct. Not the package, that file. Every file has one entry here. This is the upgrade.log. This is the request.log, which is here. Every entry here will be a file here, and you could go to that particular config and change it.
Okay. And during, like at the client end, we will mostly be deploying it on WebLogic or Tomcat or Jib or something.
At least about 95 to 96 more than 95% of the times you would be having it as a standalone. The reason is maintaining configuration for AEM requires a separate admin task, and you need somebody to maintain your WebLogic and the app servers, right? So AEM itself is scalable. So that's the reason there is no additional benefit out of having a separate server as an app server.
Okay, so if we have an HA environment, I mean, is this Jetty web server scalable, or how does that then happens?
What is HA?
High availability.
Okay, yeah, your AEM servers can be made, it can be clustered, and you would have multiple published models. You would have a caching strategy. There is something called dispatcher for high availability and caching. So yes, there are some concepts that you will learn, okay, which enables you to have just the standalone.
Okay, so that is I mean, is that a plugin with this itself, or is that a totally different module?
It's a separate module. Dispatcher will stand in front of the publish. This is probably too early to look into that, but yes, we will look at what dispatcher is, how high availability is possible, and all of that stuff.
Okay, and one more question I had was, so we have an author server and a publish server, and which are basically two totally independent servers, right? And I'm assuming in the production mode, they will be like two totally different hosting servers altogether. So when you make an edit on an author server and you commit it to the publish server, how is the linkage created between
we don't, okay, let me show you this. Okay, so how does a publish server run? So if you see, this is the same jar file is renamed into, okay, let me pick up another one. Okay, probably this should be good. Okay. The same jar file for the publish mode. If you remember, the naming convention for publish instance is CQ-mode, which is publish, followed by P4503. Okay. Just double click on this publish. So let me pick up one. So this is the publish instance. Double click, let the publish instance start. So how does the content move from author to publisher? We won't deploy anything. All you need to do is on your page, just click on activate.
Okay, but how does, so these are two totally different instances, right?
Do different,
But
there is
how-
one HTTP transport protocol that delivers the content to the publisher. So yes, here the thing is, this is still the first class. We need to understand this is called replication. There's a replication agent that does that. This is still the first class, so still a lot of steps to cover. So we will understand those.
Okay.
Any other questions specific to today? Because many things you might have to wait for a few days before it gets exactly answered. Okay guys, so there are a few people who are new today. So all right, so let's come back tomorrow. We will stop at this point today. People who want to continue tomorrow, please give your confirmation to Srini, and then you can join. And Arvind, with you I will share the recording and the notes, everything, whatever is required.
Sure, Rajesh. Also, for the software, AEM.
I'll share the jar and the license with you.